If you've been quitting on yourself, it just might not be a discipline problem. It's possible it's an engine problem. Keep listening to learn how to refuel your brain and your heart. Welcome to Aging Flipped, where grandmotherhood becomes your launchpad for transforming aging. I'm your host, Debbie Talbert. My mission is to help you create a rich, enriched, and optimal life in your grandmotherhood years by flipping the script on aging. Each episode reveals new possibilities for creating a lasting legacy while thriving mentally, physically, and emotionally. Let's jump in and reshape that aging story together. Welcome back to Aging Flipped, the podcast where women in their grandmotherhood years, whether you're already there, soon to be there, or hope to be there, come to reconnect with their energy, purpose, and peace. I am so excited to be here with you today. This is episode 3 in the 7-part series of the Aging Flip Flight Plan, my signature framework for helping women like you lead with intention, protect your energy, and rewrite your story about what's possible as you're aging. In these episodes, they're designed to give you this higher level surface map kind of view of the work. The real work does come from the day-to-day application, the rewiring, and that's how you create the forward motion. And this really does happen within coaching, and that's where coaching can benefit you. Because knowing what to do is very helpful. Learning to put the steps into action in real life and follow through with them, even throughout the discomfort, it's really beneficial if you have a guide by your side doing that. And that's how you get the changes to stick. After I retired from flying, I started to realize in my own life that I didn't really know how to land, so to speak. I had all this freedom and no structure. I felt a little bit lost, a little bit disconnected. I wasn't depressed, but I wasn't really plugged in either. I didn't really feel comfortable in my life. And then one day I noticed that the gym I belonged to had these aerobic water classes. I decided that I was going to be curious, give it a try, and find out what happens. So I showed up. It was awkward. I felt a little bit uncertain. And now I have been doing these water aerobic activities, especially when I go to Tennessee and joining these water aerobic classes at the gym. And over a year now on a regular basis. And I really love it. It's not because I have to, but because of the movement and the connection. Because there's movement in the class, and really the water aerobics class is fun. And it's the connection with the people in the class as you're laughing and splashing around in the pool and having all of that. And what this movement plus connection does is it equals brain fuel as well as emotional fuel. That tiny decision restored power to my internal engines. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Just like the airplane needs both engines to fly, you need two sources of internal power to create real momentum in your life. You want to have cognitive power, which is your ability to focus, plan, learn, and stay curious. And then you also want to have emotional power, which is your ability to feel, process, and regulate without spiraling out of control or numbing. Numbing and buffering is where you're distracting yourself from your emotions, using things like eating, drinking, shopping, gambling, scrolling your phone, binge watching. And when these two systems, your cognitive power and your emotional power, when you actually have these two systems aligned, then you really can create and design and live this life that feels remarkable. You feel energized. You like how you're showing up. You get to show up more often as your favorite version of you. You can fuel it by understanding what the engines are and learning to navigate these two parts, the cognitive power and the emotional power. So let's talk about engine one. Let's start with the brain. And so women, most of the times in their grandmotherhood years, you are often juggling mental load from family. It could be that your kids are having kids and they need your help with that. It could be that your parents are needing your help with things. It could be that changes are happening at your work. It could be that your friends need your help because maybe they're struggling with their parents having something, right? So there's a lot of mental load within your family dynamics as well as in your personal life dynamics. And you end up with some decision fatigue. Then you start to have those hormone shifts. And then there's all these emotional processes happening from all these life transitionings that feel like they're happening to you all of a sudden all at once. And that's why I coach women to create a structure that lightens that load. Some of the simple tools that we work with are journaling your food to help you understand what foods am I eating and what's happening. That really does help. It's not about restriction, it's about observing patterns. We also use tools like designing tiny habits, practicing and celebrating small things, starting with the tiny step and building our way up. Just like we talked in the previous episode about the altitude shifts and the thoughts, we can also do little tiny altitude changes with our habits. And then pre-deciding your schedule and pre-planning it out ahead of time, it really does reduce a lot of that daily decision fatigue. One of my clients began doing this 5-minute brain warm-ups in the morning. Part of it consisted of journaling, looking at her schedule, and thinking about what she was thinking about the schedule, and making little altitude shifts along the way if she needed to. Then she would do some flight stretching, and moving around. Then she had silence, whether you want to use that silence time to be with God kind of thing, or silence to meditate, whichever one. She happened to use meditation. And she said that this little tiny process of her brain warm-ups started to help her brain go away from the buffering and dreading her day and trying to shut itself off before the day even started to where it was clicking on. And that's the power of stabilizing your mental engine. And then we have on the other side, which is the engine two. If you notice, right, on the larger aircraft, the commercial aircrafts, there's two engines. And so engine two within inside the aging flight plan is your emotional power. If you ever find yourself reaching for things like food, wine, or scrolling your phone when you're bored, or loneliness, or even when you're experiencing joy, notice how sometimes there's this discomfort of simply standing in the coffee line waiting for your coffee. We don't stand there and wait anymore, do we? We are on our phones. We pick up our phone and scroll it. We've become very accustomed to looking at our phone, to not be in those moments of simply waiting for something. And that could be actually boredom. It's not that you're broken. It's simply that you don't really know, you haven't been taught how to process emotions. And in that moment, when the coffee line waiting, it is the emotion of bored or maybe even loneliness coming and showing up. And what I encourage you to practice embracing that and just noticing it. After I've talked about this, just kind of noticing it. For me, I know I talked about it in the last few episodes, the great flower escape. If you're listening in the month of April or May, I am doing my own personal great flower escape within my glucose game. I'm working on my insulin resistance and utilizing a system I call the Feel Great system to help me with that. And part of that is my great flower escape. And what I'm noticing as I'm doing that and working towards eliminating the flour and sugar from my stuff, it really wasn't about loving the favorite flavor of the foods. I do like the flavor. But the true thing I've been learning is that it was really the discomfort of being with my own emotions. That's really what was happening for me. I was using these substances to help myself in moments of boredom, in moments of loneliness. And I was using the flour and sugar type of stuff to not be with the emotion. I was trying to numb them away. It's really letting yourself feel if you're working towards eliminating something and changing your eating. So for the purposes of actually fueling your body for longevity and optimal longevity, there may be changes that you're going to want to make in what you're consuming. And this is where cravings will come in. Or let's say you're finding yourself in this space of boredom or loneliness, and you've developed this behavior in the evenings of turning on episodes to binge watch. And you find yourself disconnecting from the individuals even in your own home. It's a habit that you've developed, possibly with all of the things happening in your life. You just want to disassociate and not be on duty. Instead of being with that emotion and learning to regulate those emotions, that's you being there in that space of avoiding it. And that's where Engine 2 comes in and understanding the emotional power. You'll learn how to name your emotion without judging it. You also learn how to be with it, notice what it's like in your body, experience it in your body, even start naming it, really getting descriptive about it. And you're going to be building your emotional capacity. So then this way, these feelings of fear, loneliness, worry, dread, you won't be afraid of them anymore. You'll notice, oh, this is what's happening. Let yourself be with it a little bit. Then, instead of using something else to try and solve that, you'll actually really be able to solve what's actually causing that emotion in the first place. It's really quite interesting once you start learning how to do that. And I shared in episode 104, in that one, which is about this man in his 70s, where he had learned to ride a Crenshaw, the type of bike. He didn't stop there. He started to teach others, and then he became a guide. And both the cognitive and the emotional power of this work, and as he stayed curious and connected, he expanded his lifespan from the inside out. I honestly feel like that's what's happening for me as I've continued to learn all of the skills to grow my coaching practice. There's a lot of discomfort in it and a lot of unknowns in it. And there's also a lot of amazing connection and purpose in it. And I really want to encourage you to go and listen to episode 104. It's with a longevity aging expert. He has a lot of insight into what happens when you do these things on purpose and how it enhances your life in your longevity years. And the same goes with my own mom. She is 86 and still playing tennis. And because she's not doing it because she's chasing her youth. She's doing it because it's fueled her purpose. It gives her movement and it helps her being social. And that's what keeps both of her engines going. I want to encourage you to think about these episodes as bits of training to help you. When your brain is clear and your emotions are steady, you don't white knuckle and worry about change. You get to co-pilot. Instead of you're co-piloting, you're directing your brain and you're pointing it where you want to go. And instead, you're no longer reaching and reacting. You're actually responding on purpose based on the direction you want to take your life. You're not just surviving in this time of your life. You're actually flying, or somebody else might call it thriving, right? And you're actually building tools. And you're really starting to become excited, almost like your grandkids, when they wake up on Christmas morning in that anticipation and how excited they are the night before Christmas, and that childlike Christmas morning excitement about your own life. So here's a coaching tool that I want you to try this week. I really want you to think about and write down these questions, and I will post them in the show notes so you can go back and look at a resource if you're listening to this episode when it's not safe for you to write down these questions, or because I might say them quickly and you're not able to write them down. They will be posted inside the show notes. And you can find any of the show notes and recaps about the episode on agingflip.com and simply look for the podcast tab. You'll find everything you need there. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, in those mini notes that I write, I do put some of the links in there too. You'll have the resources right at your fingertips. Ask yourself, what does your brain feel like? Does it feel foggy, heavy, or overstimulated right now? And what emotions have you been avoiding, numbing, or pushing aside? Really just let yourself get curious. And then, what would support look like at this season in your life? Would it be setting a boundary? Would it be texting a friend? Would it be taking a walk? And what I mean by taking a walk is taking a walk without a device in your ears. Being out there in nature and taking a walk, like taking yourself on a walk, right? Or would it maybe be journaling or some deep breathing, maybe even meditation? That moment of awareness is when the power returns to your engines. So if you notice yourself feeling a little bit foggy, feeling a little bit heavy or overstimulated, I want you to pause and ask yourself this question: what would support look like here? And find out what happens. I would love it if you would email me and tell me what happens. And you can find out how to get in touch with me over at agingflip.com. For those of you that really want to take this a little bit further, this seemed really interesting to you, and your brain might be telling you, yes, I need that. I want more of that. I want to know how I can do that more often in my life. I invite you to book a confidence boarding pass call with me. It's a free 30-minute session where we look together at where you're feeling stuck, what's causing you to feel maybe foggy, which of your engines need attention at this moment, one next step to help you move forward with clarity and peace. It's not a sales call, it's a support call. And you can find out how to book that at agingflip.com. Just go to the Work with Debi page, and there'll be a button for you to book this call. And I do want to encourage you to do that. If some of what I've said to you gave you some ahas, like, I need more of that in my life, that resonates with me. In the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your day or week, and I will be back next week with part 4 in this series of episodes about the Aging Flip flight plan. Now it's your turn. What stood out for you today? Take one small step toward implementing that one thing that stood out to you today. Remember, every action, no matter how small, shapes your aging journey. I am here to cheer you on. Visit agingflipped.com for resources and tools to support you on the journey of flipping your script about aging.